Hey everybody, I'm Chris Fellabaum. I'm a Principal Consultant for Managed Services here at Rizing HCM, and I am joined by...
Hi, I'm Dawn Stiers. I'm a Senior Consultant here at Rizing, focused on the LMS implementations.
Well, so another new release. It's release time again, everybody's favorite time of year. And, you know, in many ways, the H1 2022 release kind of picks up from where the H2 2021 release left off. In the H2 release, PQE exams were being deprecated. Now they're being deleted. There are some updates to VLS integrations, kind of building on the Teams integration that made its appearance in H2. I would say that the most profound release feature or set of features, though, is around learning, continuing to move away from being truly kind of a standalone module and becoming tied closer and closer with SuccessFactors platform. And nowhere do you see that more than with the implementation and upcoming requirement for IAS for learning-only users to be able to log in. But we'll talk a little more about that. And as always, much more information is available in the What's New viewer from SAP SuccessFactors. And yeah, let's jump right in. So talking about PQE.
Yeah, as a longtime user of the LMS, I have to admit I'm a little happy that's officially finally going away. The new assessment tools that were released by SuccessFactors a few years ago actually are so much better. And hopefully by this time, everybody who had been using PQE exams and questions have transferred them over into the new assessment tools and are ready for this removal of the PQE questions. So it's also hopefully not a surprise for folks at this point.
I'm sure SuccessFactors is happy to see it, see it die, for lack of a better word, as well. Yeah, the new assessment tool blows it out of the water.
Oh, yeah.
And I've certainly worked with a few customers who were still depending on some of those legacy exams. And there, of course, are a lot of options in the system through the import-export tool to kind of convert those over. And that actually works pretty well. But you better hurry if they're still live, because yeah, effective in May, they will not work anymore. So,
yeah, May 20th, if you're counting days. So it's coming.
Right. May 20th, wow. At least it's not on my birthday, so. But the probably one of the bigger ticket items also to discuss would be the new course home. So obviously there's been kind of a saga with course home over the past several years. A little history. It was originally introduced, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago. And, there's a lot of customer feedback around it. It was not always popular. There were a lot of enhancement requests by customers, and SuccessFactors listened. So, starting last year, they kind of started building out a take 2 of course home to ultimately replace and kind of kill off the original course home. I keep using that word. And this release really brings what SuccessFactors is calling the new course home into almost full parity with non-course home UI features, right? So,
right.
And for people who are not aware of what course home is, if you've never turned it on in your staging instance or you don't actively use it, course home is just a new kind of much more visually appealing UI around course viewing, course launch, course registration, and the enhanced course home or new course home is almost completely fully featured with addition of online item classification, external item classification this go around. and some additional features that were missing, such as reserved seats, wait lists, around instructor-led training. There are some features that are still pending, but I think they're much less common features in general. And most customers probably would not miss those things around commerce, for example, or e-signature. So I certainly am going to recommend to all my customers that they turn it on, if they haven't already, in their preview instance or their staging LMS at this point, and really start, playing around with it, familiarizing yourself with it. One update is that as of H2 2022, the original course home will be deprecated. So if you're using the original course home, it will just switch over to using the new course home, or course home blended, as it's called in the LMS admin configuration file.
Right, and that's actually going to be happening, again, if you're counting the days, on November 19th. So you have until about mid-November if you're really running up against that deadline. Also, for customers who are actually using some of the features, such as e-signature or JAM integrations, I've been recommending that you might want to hold off on implementing the new course home, but again, only if you're highly dependent upon those additional features that aren't quite in parity yet. And try things out on your stage environment, like Chris said, with turning the new course home on and seeing if the lack of parity in those few features is something that you can deal with, and maybe wait for those to be added in. So, yeah.
And I would just add real quickly, a common question I get is the sort of legacy or original UI for courses, is that going to be going away? And according to SuccessFactors, there's no planned sunset date for the non-course home version of things, or pretty much the version of things that you've seen for years now. So customers who are not quite ready to make that jump need not worry, at least at this point. So. Right,
but you do get some pretty nice features with the new course home. So things that we will be having because of this release, we also are getting short class descriptions able to be viewed in the new course home. So you can have more information about an individual class, including target audience information and language information within the class description itself with the new course home. So that's kind of a nice thing to try out.
Mm-hmm. Also, the ability to configure at a global level user withdrawal from manager registered classes. So, withdrawal from registration is always kind of worked downstream, right? If an admin enrolls you, only an admin can withdraw you. Mm-hmm. If a supervisor or manager enrolls you, only an admin or a manager could withdraw you. And only a learner, if they self-registered for a class, could disenroll or cancel that registration themselves, assuming there's no workflow around that to have approval for it. But yeah, the new course home does bring the capability to globally configure a default setting, and that would be in registration settings within system configuration, to allow learners to withdraw even if they were registered by their manager. And that can also be overridden once it's activated at the class level, once course home is activated, that is.
Right. And speaking of withdrawals, we do also have a new feature for this release, which could cause problems in the past for some folks, which was if there was one seat left over in a class and you had multiple people in the middle of registering for that seat, trying to get that seat, you might end up in a situation where the class was overbooked because the seat was claimed by whoever was in the process of registering. And if that happened to be 4 people, well, you now have 4 people in your class where there was only space for 1. Now that has been changed so that the person who gets the seat is the first one to complete the registration, as opposed to people who are in the middle of registering. So the first person to complete the registration will get the seat. And if other people are in the process of registering, they'll actually get a message indicating that there's now no longer a seat for them and they'll be placed on the wait list. So for some folks, that has caused an issue in the past, and it has now been remedied by SuccessFactors with this release.
Kind of a happy problem to have, right? In the past, that means people are actually registering for your stuff. So.
Right.
One other kind of global setting that is a new feature in this release is the default item type classification.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, with the new admin UI that's been out for several releases now, when you create a new item, by default, it would be online item classification. Not that you couldn't change it. Of course, you could change that to instructor-led, et cetera. But there is a global configuration available now in global application settings to set the default initial or new item type classification. So if you're an organization who almost exclusively does instructor-led training, for example, which is probably kind of the reverse of the reality these days, but you could set that global default to instructor-led, for example, and all new items would be that classification when you create them. So nice new feature.
Yeah, another good one that may make an impact on companies and customers that are using the ability to have concurrent employment and multiple employments for a single user. In the LMS, we now have a unified learning history. So if you have a user who has 3 different jobs that they can switch through, so concurrent employments, it used to be that the learning history that they had with one job was segregated from a learning history for another job. And now they are being brought together into a single unified learning history, which really will help with understanding what a single person has actually completed in the system, as opposed to having to keep track of 3 different history reports at one time.
Yep, very nice enhancement. And that is accessible to managers as well when viewing a learning history for one of their reports. One interesting feature that really will only directly impact net new customers who are implementing now is that newly provisioned learning instances. And we do have customers who have several sets of instances, platform and EC and learning, who occasionally add them. But moving forward, they will be pre-integrated. So SuccessFactors presumably will confirm your plans for integrating that instance. But typically, new instances are delivered together and they will be pre-integrated. There will be a task for some customers, however, in the coming months. And according to SuccessFactors, they plan to kind of phase this in and roll this out in a measured capacity. But they are going to be asking customers through learning administration to confirm their existing integration. So this is customers who predate this release, obviously. And apparently it'll be a very simple kind of one-click thing, but don't be surprised if you do receive a communication indicating that you need to confirm your current integrated learning instance with the BizX instance or platform instance that it's integrated with. That's a lot of integrations. And not all customers will be asked to do this, apparently. In some cases, assumptions will be made where possible. There can sometimes be sort of non-standard integrated instances that apparently would be a flag to where that verification or confirmation will be required at some point soon. And watch the customer community for more information about that.
Yeah, so if you see that message, don't be alarmed. It's okay.
And I've actually seen it in a couple customer preview LMS instances already, kind of predating the communication around it. But as far as I know, no action is required at this point. So
Correct. Let's see. Other big ones do we have? I think that, let's see, we had some IAS related updates as far as users. Do you want to highlight any of those in particular?
Absolutely. This is kind of near and dear to my heart. I've been working on a few of these LMS IAS migrations lately. So this only, and I'm sure most customers have gotten the memo by now, but customers who have learning only users, and that means users who are created directly in Learning, do not exist in platform, and who log directly into LMS, either via the legacy native login page or a site, will need to take action to implement IAS and IPS, first of all, at the platform level. That is the prerequisite. So if you fall into this group of customers and you have not kind of kicked that off at the platform level, that can be a little time consuming. So it would be a very good time to start planning for that and make that a priority. Once that's in place, though, for customers who have learning only users, there is a migration process where the existing users in SuccessFactors Learning are recategorized or kind of scanned, and the system categorizes them as either platform users or learning users, depending on their origin system. And the learning only users from that point forward, once this migration is complete, will have an IAS login instead of the legacy login, either through a site or the native login page. But the deadline to have this in place for learning only users is H2. So presumably by sometime in November, I don't have the date right in front of me, you will need to already have the IPS IAS implemented for platform and the LMS migrated to use IAS for learning only users by H2. And at that point, if you haven't implemented this and performed these actions, those users will no longer be able to log in.
And my apologies, I actually gave the November 19th date. That's the date that IAS is going to be the basically the only way to get into the LMS for learning only users. It's the removal of the original course home is November 11th. So sorry, a few days off there.
That a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously that may change in the interim,
right,
a little bit. Interestingly, also, if you are a customer who's implementing now, and will go live on this release, and you will have learning only users, you'll need to actually implement IAS, IPS, and do that integration with learning before you can create learning only users, is what I'm hearing. I haven't actually tested this in a preview instance yet, but that apparently is the word moving forward. So the writing is definitely on the wall that this will be the only accepted authentication method. So if you haven't started your planning around that, please do, and we can help. So,
I did also want to touch on some of the changes that have been made to the general homepage that are really kind of exciting. For years, we've had, of course, integration of the LMS with the rest of the SuccessFactors suite. And if you had any learning that was assigned to you on your main homepage, you used to see a tile that would just say, you have so many assignments. And then to see what the assignments were, you would have to click on the tile, view the list, and then you could launch that training. That's now been changed to actually display more information about your learning assignments. So you can see what's assigned to you directly on the main SuccessFactors homepage. And you can launch that training right from there without having the additional click to unveil the mystery about what's being assigned to you. And the same is actually now true of approvals as well. So it used to be you had a tile that said you have approvals, and then to see them, you would have to click on the tile and proceed. Now they are all going to be laid out for you on your homepage so you can actually see and act on those approvals in your main SuccessFactors environment.
And worth noting that even if you have the new homepage experience in platform already implemented, the learning assignment and learning approval actions are a separate upgrade in Upgrade Center. So those need to be done individually.
Good point.
The only other thing that jumps to mind is for customers with either a Teams or Zoom VLS integration. Of course, that's the integration. It's been around for a long time with WebEx and Adobe Connect, et cetera. That allows you to schedule virtual meetings and launch those from the LMS and auto record completion based on a completion threshold, which is a very popular feature. Not real high impact enhancements, but one that is kind of notable is that if there's a change of primary instructor for a VLS or virtual class that's already been scheduled, with this release, that will now trigger a revised notification to enrolled users with a new link to the session. So that was maybe a little bit too manual in the past, and not everyone maybe got the message. So that's a very nice enhancement. And a couple other, more minor enhancements to streamline those integrations and make them a little easier to live with.
Yeah, mainly the population of data fields required for Teams and for other tools, just making sure that they're populated with something so that a meeting can be scheduled appropriately and users could be invited appropriately.
I think that's about it. There's a lot of other miscellaneous stuff that we don't really have time to touch on, but make sure you look at the What's New viewer. A few API enhancements if you are using the LMS API, things like that. But yeah, not a huge release, kind of an evolution. Looking forward to some roadmap items though, including a new end user experience, as well as capabilities in LMS. Those are some things on the roadmap and horizon that I'm watching with interest.
Yeah, most definitely. And I do like your use of the word evolution. It is definitely seeing that evolve and become more unified, as you said earlier, with the rest of the SuccessFactors modules.
Indeed. Well, thank you, Dawn. And
thanks, Chris.
Again, my name's Chris, and we will see you in H2. Unless you work with us, of course, then we'll talk with you and see you sooner.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, bye-bye.